She is the CEO of Rooths. She helps strength nonprofit and so they can solve daily life problems and controversies. She has coached and consulted with a variety of executives across small and large organizations by bringing intelligent, insightful, and engaging solutions for individuals, organizations, and all the communities. She's the board president of the Charles Bibbs, the African American Museum, and the Cultural Center of co-founder of Anti-Racist at Riverside. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you with so joy, Janice Rooths. Miss Rooths, thank you so much to be with us today.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to be here with Evolution of Leadership. It is exciting for me to do this. As I mentioned to Alexis, that everybody in business should want to do this every week for you. You should never have to worry about ever looking for another person to come talk to you and pass on their experience to you, because we have all been helped by somebody. And we should be ready and willing to do that for all of you at any time. So I'm very, very happy to be here. I always enjoy talking to people who are young and in school and going into careers, because it can often be kind of a big question mark out there. You know, you're in school, sometimes you're working part-time jobs, but when you get ready to do something you really want to do, it's like, okay, now what? How do I do that? And what I'd like to talk to you about today is actually you as a product. And it sounds kind of crazy, but actually when you think about it, you know, there's a job market, there are premium products, and there's passion and leadership, and all of that is actually related to you as the product in this job market. So the first thing is, you know, what's a job, right? A job is someone needs something and they're willing to pay for it. They're willing to pay you, hopefully, to do it, and you want to do it for some pay. And so it works out, right? There's an exchange. And whenever you have an exchange of something, that's really called a marketplace, right? So in a market, like a supermarket, you know, you're exchanging, you know, you go, you find something you want, and then you pay for it. And likewise, you know, the stock market's the same thing. You buy pieces of companies and you hope you hope they go up and become more valuable. And likewise, when you go into a market or any kind of store, you want to get the best you can for your money. And it is no different for an employer, right? Whether or not you're actually on their staff, or they're just hiring you to do one thing, you know, whether it is going out to speak to thousands of people and sell $1 million products or cut the grass, they still want the best they can get for the money, and so do you. So when you look at yourself as a product, you then want to consider, how can I be the best product possible? How can I give them what they want and have them view me as the best they're going to get for their money? And not in terms of there's nothing really good out here and so I'm the best, but I am the best among the best, okay? If you've ever been in an interview and someone asked you, why should I hire you over anyone else? This is the question they're asking. How are you the best I can get for my money? And when you go to the store, you do the same thing. If you're buying apples, you're not going to buy the apple that has bruises on it, right? So maybe that apple represents your resume. You're not going to, buy an orange if it's split open. You're not going to buy a shirt if the sleeve is torn, unless it's supposed to be that way, right? And so you want to make sure that you as a product looks so good to someone who wants you, the employer, that they say, I want this and I'm willing to pay for it. And likewise, in the stock market and the supermarket, there are premium products, right? That's when we're talking about the best of the best. We're talking about premium products. We're talking about, in our current market, or our current world, we talk about designer names on products, right? And And sometimes it's really odd. I had a friend who I work with, and he's from China, and he would go back home. He lives here, but he would go back home. And before he went home, he'd have all the people he knew would say, okay, I want these vitamins from GNC. And I want you to get me this purse from, Nordstrom or Saks, because I don't want to buy the knockoffs here in China. Okay, I want to make sure I'm getting the actual premium product, right? So how do you become a premium product? From a workplace perspective, from an employment perspective, from living your life perspective, the first thing and the most important thing to me has been continuous improvement, which is lifelong learning. So I'm just a generally curious person, and I am constantly looking at things. I'll read articles about, all kinds of things that I'm interested in. I love astrophysics, and I love physics kinds of concepts in the world, right? They have nothing to do with the work I've ever done, but if I see it, I'll read it because I'm just interested. But I never know when that might be an interesting conversation with somebody I meet who might become important to my, me as a product and what I'm trying to do in the marketplace, right? So to give you an example, my degree is in communication arts, my undergraduate degree. So before I got my first job, I thought about television broadcasting or public relations. But once in college, I took a programming course just for the heck of it, just to see what it was about. And it turns out that my first job was actually as a programmer. That led me into a career in technology that went to being a software engineer and a systems engineer and a program manager and working for IBM and Accenture, to selling mainframes and being able to take customers on the corporate jet. None of that would have been possible for me, really, had I not taken that one programming course. It gave me insight, and I continued to learn after that. I took classes on database management systems. Before I went to sell products, I took classes in finance to understand the leases that I would have to talk with my customers about. And in fact, I've taken finance probably 3 times because I just wanted to be sure I really understood that. So learning throughout your life is really important. But technology isn't my only career. I've had multiple careers. And in order to go into each of those, I had to have some understanding of that. So, I was a director of marketing when I'd never worked in marketing, but I understood marketing because I had an MBA. I was a vice president of finance and administration when I had never done accounting as a job or finance. But, and I'll tell you more about that in a little later as well, because how those things came about. But lifelong learning is extremely important. Today, I am a racial equity warrior. That's what I do. That's what I care about. That's what I do. I started in 2018. I took a course. It wasn't a course I needed for the work I was doing. I was supporting my customers with financial and accounting support, teaching them how to be better executives. But this was something I had a personal interest in. And so I decided to take that course. And today I am moving all of my work as an independent consulting firm into racial equity. And I have not stopped learning since 2018. So lifelong learning allows you to do a lot of things. And hopefully, in the future, I may do others. I wanted to go to law school many years ago. I never did, but that doesn't mean I won't. So lifelong learning and continuously improving yourself as a product is exceptionally important. And if you look at any product on the market, you'll see that. You'll see, jeans every year, something different. Over time, you'll see flares and straight and, all kinds of things that have changed, because every product, in order to stay competitive in the marketplace, has to change. So what else can you do? Well, you can become an apprentice. You can use a paid job to teach you something that you want to know, but you don't know already. If somebody's willing to give you that opportunity, they like the way you sound, they like the way you look, they like the experience you've had in the past, and you haven't done this, they may give you the opportunity to do it. But if there is something you really want to do and you don't know how, you can volunteer. I mean, right now we may call that internships, right, while you're in school, but you know, it could just be walking into an organization, a nonprofit or for-profit, and saying, I'm very interested in learning about marketing, and I'm willing to volunteer my time to do that. These are the things I can bring you. I am very good with computers. I am very good, you know, with any number of things that you know you can do. Learn what you want to know by actually doing it, and doing it, you know, on somebody else's money if you can. The last thing about developing yourself as a premium product is being active in the marketplace. And you've heard the word networking and advertising before, but as a product, any product, in any company that's selling anything, if no one knows about it, it will never be sold. If no one knows about it, it will never be sold. And that means the same thing for you. If you have an interest in an area, whatever you're studying or whatever you're working in and you really enjoy, or you just have an interest and you want to go and see what this really means as a work, find groups of professionals that already do that. And I'll tell you this, if you're students, you should be welcomed with open arms, okay? And any group that wouldn't do that, then that's not a group you want to go to anyway, okay? But yes, most definitely. And you know, just because you're a student doesn't mean you shouldn't have a business card. You should. And it should be something that you can exchange with someone else so that you can talk to them about what it is they do and how they do it, and maybe giving you an opportunity to either volunteer or do it with them to do that, or to learn about it, or, you know, for pay if they're open to that as well. But it is really important to use volunteer work in particular, and I kind of bounce in between these two because I think one of the examples I wanted to give you is that I volunteered with a homeless organization for a number of years. In fact, I was working in LA. I told Alexis I worked in LA for a while. And I would volunteer with them to just help them do fundraising or discuss issues. They had an advisory board. And so after about, I want to say maybe 3 years doing that, I went by one day and said, look, I just want to volunteer today. I don't have anything to do. I'm going to go home. I've been at a meeting, give me something to do. I can help you out with something. And the COO sat me down. She said, come talk to me in my office. And I said, okay. She said, how would you like to be Vice President of Finance and Administration? And I said, well, I've never done that. And she said, okay. I said, and I do like numbers. I could do the finance part. I can learn, but I've never done that. And she said, I think you would be a good fit for our team. I've worked with you over these years. I've seen how you operate, what you've done with us and for us. And I think you would be a good member of our team. And I said, okay, I will go think about that. And honestly, it's not the first time I've been asked to do a job I never did before. But certainly there have been multiple times where I've done jobs I've never done before and was asked to do them just because I was volunteering. So it is very important to get out there, to network, to advertise yourself, to let people know what you want to do. Because you're telling them what kind of product you are, what you can bring to their table, how you can help them get their need filled. And that's really, really important. Now, past that, what happens once you're a premium product? Once you know what it is you're going to try and do, how you've developed yourself. Well, hopefully you have some passion about something, because that's the driver. That is, the what that you're meant to be, right? And you really want to consider that. I will tell you this, my passions have changed over the years, and that's not a problem. I have been passionate about social enterprise so much that I pushed it to people. I talked about it. I learned as much as I could about it and tried to help as many nonprofits as I could to use, to find ways to raise revenues in their companies without just feeling like they're always asking for help from other companies, from other foundations, from individuals for donations. It's a difficult job when you feel like you're begging, when you're trying to do something to help people, even in a homeless services environment, right? So my passions changed over the years. I had wanted to start a business of a certain kind. I learned about that as much as I could. I went to an organization to work with them to see how I could do that. I realized in working with that organization that I would be frustrated, completely frustrated in running a business, that kind of business, because I would have to deal with the government. I would have to deal with other groups. So it taught me a lot. But also, I realized I still have that passion to help people. And I've always had that passion to help people from when I was a small child. And that hasn't changed for me. So it helped me learn over time and really get to this point in my life where my helping people has helped me to really understand where specifically it means the most to me to help people. And for me personally, it is, I refuse to leave this planet until I do something significant for African Americans in this country. So that's where I am in my life. That's where my passion is now. What if I do that significant thing? Will I keep going? Will I change? I don't know. But I know right now this is where I am. And so I continue to build my skills. And I am at a point where it gets, sometimes you learn to build those skills faster as you go along. But your passion, talk to yourself, really consider, what is it that drives me? And sometimes it might just be a little seed right now and you just don't get, it's a little fuzzy. It's okay, but keep focusing on what that is because it will become very, very, very important to you. Leadership. There is so much literature on leadership and what that means and what that is. And I know you've had some really great people come to talk to you about leadership. For me, leadership is fulfilling my promise to myself. And once I figured out what my real promise was to myself, I am now in a position where I won't do anything except that. Recently I have been getting even offers to, can you come and do this work for me? We really need it. And I've had to say, I would love to, but I can't. I need to be focused on the thing that's important to me now. Leadership is never, obviously, and I'm sure you've heard this, about telling other people what to do, but about trying to facilitate reaching a goal. And for me, again, you've heard what I said, I can't leave this planet until I've done something significant for African Americans. And I am working right now on systemic racism. And what can I do to affect the change? So that's my promise to myself. My leadership has led me to co-found an organization called Anti-Racist Riverside. And in doing that, people have come on board who also feel that way, right? And what I do is I just facilitate meetings and trying to get the work done to make it happen. But it's the passion that drives me. And the leadership is the promise to myself. That is the highest promise I have for myself. And if you have that now, it doesn't mean it will stay that way forever, because this wasn't always my promise to myself, right? Over my lifetime, I went through many different promises to myself, but this is the promise I have for myself now. And so the leadership in this is about, how do I put forward the best person I can be, sort of my product, me as my product, right? In order to do what I promised myself I would. And that's all of the things we talked about so far, is continuous learning. And I mean, I was in a 2.5-hour training yesterday. I will be in a 2 full-day training in 2 weeks. And the week after that, I'll be in another 2 full-day training. And I'll never stop. And I order books every day, okay? It really is, I need to stay as knowledgeable as possible. I will never think that that I know it all. I'll never even call myself an expert, because I don't believe I could ever have enough knowledge about what I'm doing. But I was actually honored with an award from the city of Riverside called the Dr. Carlos E. Cortez Award, for being a champion of diversity and inclusion in the city of Riverside. And that was really surprising to me, because it actually says I was providing some kind of leadership, right? But I don't think of myself that way. I think about my promise and the work I need to do. And I kind of, and I do whatever I can to affect that change. So whoever I need to talk to, I will talk to. If I need to be in front of city council, I will talk to them. If I need to talk to the mayor, I'll do that. Whoever it is, because my passion and my promise are important to me. And I think that makes me a product. So these days, it's really interesting, because when I get a call, I'm almost 100% sure they're calling me because there is an equity issue. There is a racial equity discussion they want to have. And whether it's working on housing or education or criminal justice, I'm sure that that's what the conversation is about. And so now I have redefined me as a product, from being a technology person who was a programmer and a software engineer to a community organizer and someone who is not just interested in the issues of our day, but who is willing to work with that, right? And that's what you as a product and you as a person in the marketplace want. You want people to be absolutely certain about who you are, what you can do, what you will do, and that you're there. And that road can be, that road to the promise can be a straight line. You know, there are people who from the day, I won't say they were born, but very, very early, maybe even in high school, elementary school, they knew what they wanted and they went directly there, right? And then, you know, there are people like me who kind of, you know, zigzagged around and winded. The road is your road. There is not a wrong or right road, unless the wrong road is leading you totally away from a life that you want. But the road to get to where you want to be, to what you want to do, it can wind. You have the right in your life to have as many careers as you want, to see the world in the way you want to operate in the world in the way you want to, and to affect the change you want, create the careers you want, and be as successful as you want. That's your right. But know that you're a product. that we're in a marketing world, that every day you probably hear a ton of people trying to sell to you. And, you know, you likewise should be thinking about yourself that way as well. How can you make yourself a premium product and travel the road to your promise in the way you want to? Um, so, you know, whether it's straight or winding, it doesn't matter. It's all about getting to where you want to be. And that's really all I have to say to you today. You know, Stephen Covey has a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I read it so many years ago, and I still look in it. And you know, he said, you know, one of the whole chapters dedicated to saying, start with the end in mind. Sometimes we don't know what the end is. I certainly didn't know this is, you know, I don't think this is the end of my life where I am now, but I didn't know I would be in this work when I started. And I don't think you have to. I just think over time, you will, if you don't already have a passion that you know you want to jump into, it will come, it will develop. And again, thank you so much for letting me talk with you today. And I am really happy to answer any questions you have.
Amazing. That was just wonderful. Thank you so much for the value that you're providing today. And I really hope that all the rest of our leaders enjoy your beautiful wisdom.
Well, thank you very much.
So now I engage you guys to start with the Q&A session. So any type of doubt, question, or even comment, feel free to do it right now.
I'm ready. Can you all hear me?
Uh-huh.
Awesome. Wow, Janice, honestly, thank you so much for hopping on board with us. I'm Angel Roman, the CEO and co-founder of Evolution of Leadership. Your work is amazing. I'm glad that you found your passion and you're constantly getting better and better at what you do. And I did want to say, have a question. What can I do to help when it comes to your mission? I most definitely, maybe we can partner at some point when everything opens up in Riverside, or you know, I'm curious, what can we do to help?
Oh, wow. Well, one is doing what you're doing. You know, this organization is, you know, looking for the right people to help. You know, finding students of color, and just having people come in and give them wisdom, the ability to even outreach to them after, you know, we talk to them should also be in the mix, because sometimes, you know, you may not have a mentor all the time, but even if you have someone that you can ask certain questions of, that's a good thing too. In terms of, you know, I mean, clearly coming out to campuses out here, if I can introduce you to anyone and get established, I'd be happy to do that, you know, at UC Riverside, at Cal State San Bernardino, at, you know, we have La Sierra University and Cal Baptist as well here, and Riverside Community College District. So there's plenty of, you know, organizations out here where you could do similar work, and I would be absolutely happy to have you. You know, I think, you know, I am focusing right now on systemic racism by bringing together community leaders to sit down, learn, and then work on a plan to fix things. And so that's, you know, I mean, it can be intense work at times, but that's I want to niche the work I do in a way that, again, the product people know, if you're calling me, this is what you should be calling me about. Okay. But
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, let's just talk. You may have ideas, you know, students may have ideas. I am very open to whatever it is and collaborating in any possible way.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. We could definitely have that conversation, and that'll be great. Especially during this current social climate, I think it's very important to have a conversation about our cultural biases when it comes to how we perceive and stereotype other ethnic groups, other gender groups, etc. But yeah, I think the anti-racism conversation is very, very important. And thank you so much, Janice. I'm definitely wanting to have a conversation with you. Thank you.
Great, wonderful.
Any other questions? As our CEO says, do not come at once. Well, if nobody has a question, I have one. Hopefully my question is not going to be the last one. So
Okay.
yeah, what was the circumstance in your life or any type of event in which you have that awakening, to create a leadership path, to become a leader? How was it, and when exactly?
Um, you know, truthfully, it's happened a number of times. But the most recent was actually George Floyd's murder. And I know that probably impacted a lot of people. I mean, I had things all during the course of my life that made me want to do something, and I did. So, for instance, I had been going to my city council and telling them, because 20 years ago, they created this inclusivity statement, right? And in actuality, it was a very good document, right? But they didn't do anything about it. And so in 2019, in fact, I started talking to them like October, November, saying, you have this great inclusivity plan statement. You need to make this a plan and then execute it. And I think that was before the 2020. And then in January of 2020, we actually had some racist incidents occur with some high school students. And so I went back and I said, I talked to you before about doing something about this before something happened, and now something happened. So, we still need to do it. And then February it happened again, and then COVID kicked in, so nothing was going on. And then in May, I thought, I'm really tired of talking. It really is time to do something. I'm not even sure what. But in July, our city council passed a resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. And they had some things in there that were active things. They weren't just, and we think this is wrong. It wasn't like that. It's we need to look at what we're doing inside the city, and make sure that we apply equity to that, and, a lot of things like that. So that day at council, I said, look, I've been talking to you for a while. I'm really tired. I am willing to work on this, with you, without you, And after that, one of my co-founders called, and she said, well, let's call the other co-founder. And so we did. And we created Anti-Racist Riverside. And it's kind of moved along since then. I mean, we read books and have discussions and talk about what can we do from those things to change things in Riverside. As an organization, we've, that declaration of racism as a public health crisis means nothing unless you do something about it. So we went to the council and said, you need to put this in your strategic plan. And they were working on their strategic plan at the time, and it wasn't in there. So they put it in, and the city manager as well. So, the city has worked with us to make that kind of change. But, and any other recommendations we have like that. Now, housing is on the table. And so, we're working on that. But George Floyd wasn't the first time I was, I don't know, it was just a straw. Not that George Floyd was a straw, but that, it's Fannie Lou Hamer said she was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I feel the same way. And so, sometimes it's something that you may have seen over and over again, and the next one is the one that really, makes you say, okay, I got to do something now. So.
Yeah,
awesome. Sorry, Cruz here actually has a question.
Hi, how are you? My name is Cruz. Hi,
Cruz.
Hi. I love your presentation. I liked about what you said about being the premium product.
Right.
But like in viewing yourself like that is, like what you put in yourself, makes you the most valuable walking human on earth, and I feel like we should always invest in ourselves and be the most valuable product,
Right.
especially, and helping and becoming, helping the people and just, making the world that we live in better each day.
Right.
But yeah, I wanted to ask you a question based on racism.
Uh-huh.
So, like I've seen many like racism cases as the one you mentioned, and while I was growing up, I went through many racist conflicts, and I had several experiences while growing up, and it kind of um it created my viewship on, like, always being kind to people, always respecting
Right.
people's differences, no matter where they're from,
Right.
but then again, it's like I asked myself, how could we, like, what's the biggest contribute that we could actually give to the world or give to people, like I know racism has lived and has been here, and it's not, and it hasn't left from like many years, but it's like I want to know like what I could do to contribute to just, I minimize that feeling that some people feel, when it comes to like their race or their people, their culture, you know.
Um, and I will go back to this theme a lot, Cruz.
Yeah.
Learning. So during the course of my life, I had personal experience. So, my son reminded me, I don't know, last year sometime, that I didn't have the right to vote in my lifetime. These systems that make up this racist system started in the 1600s. And so it is designed to make all of us who are on this screen feel like there is something out there that's going to stop us from doing what we want to do. Because white supremacy tries to say that they're the best and we are not, that affects people. And if you're a small child and you start hearing that, you believe that, right? It's not until you get to be an adult and you know that, that's not true, or someone says that's not true, you don't know that, right? And I think learning about your culture and your history. There's a course, a workshop called, there's an organization called the Racial Equity Institute. It's in Greensboro, North Carolina. They have something called a phase 1 training, and it teaches about really systemic racism in a couple of ways. But they go from the 1600s forward to show what the government, and white people with money in the country have done from that time forward to ensure, one, we can feel as inferior as possible, if it's possible, and two, to take advantage of every possible resource, person, and anything else in this country, right, of color. And so, for instance, they go through and they talk about what happens, with Native Americans, what happens with Asian Americans, what happens with, the country of Mexico. So when the U.S. and Mexico fought and the U.S. won, the United States took the portion of Mexico that had the greatest amount of resources and the fewest amount of people, because they wanted a white country, okay? And they've done that in 100,000 different ways over that 400 plus years. So it is really important to know two things. One, the history of racism in this country, and systemic racism in particular. And two, the history of our different cultures in this country. All of us who make up this country, and not only make up this country, but made this country, okay? We have all contributed.
Yeah.
And our ancestors contributed. And so learn, because you come in contact with people and they feel a certain way, right? And you don't feel like you have what you need necessarily to tell them, to help them understand what you're feeling. That's not real, right? And whoever it was that called you a name or treated you a certain way, they're not better than you at all. They're not better than you at all. It's irrelevant whether they have more degrees or anything else, because every one of us brings something unique to the table of the world.
You're right.
And no one else can do that. So how can they devalue you just because they have money? You know, the rich people in this country, you know, they have all these foundations now, the Fords, the Rockefellers, the, you know, Carnegies, right? They're giving money away. That's guilt money. And they don't even give it away. They only give little pieces of it away, you know, to try and make up for things that they did in the past. So for instance, in the early 1900s, there were seven Black medical schools. And the Rockefellers and the Carnegies decided that they wanted to create the pharmaceutical industry. Okay. So they changed entirely how medicine was taught and used. So today, for instance, you know, it's very common for people to get acupuncture or acupressure or to use herbal medicines and all kinds of things like that, right? Medical schools used to teach all kinds of things like that, okay? Including, you know, how to do surgeries and the like, but they used to teach a wide range of things. And like, I think it was maybe 1910 or so, the Rockefellers and Carnegies got together with a man who created a report from Germany, who wasn't even a doctor, mind you. He said that we should be working on a pharmaceutical basis and not with, you know, all of these, what they want to call like quack types of medicines, right? So all the medical schools had to change and become pharmacology based, right? And they told the Black schools that their issue was not, they didn't get sick because they were sick. They got sick because they didn't do hygiene well. They didn't know how to do hygiene. So they closed 5 of those medical schools, and only 2 remained that were today that were open then, and that's Howard and Meharry. These were very, very rich men, very, very powerful men, and had the ability to do that in this country. In the 1900s, okay? That wasn't in the 1700s or the 1600s, it was in the 1900s, okay? And so we're still fighting the battle today, just having that few medical schools be available during that time. You have to know what happened in this country from its beginnings, because this country started with capitalists, okay? And every law that's ever been written has to do with how can people with money make more money. And I like to say that racism is the puppet of capitalism, because it is used to divide people so that we can't see what's really going on. So as long as, you know, middle class or poor white people can fight with us, right? They can't look up and see, first of all, you're never going to be in that 0.1%. Right? Most of us are never going to be in that 0.1%. You are not going to be there. Just because you're white does not mean that. Second, your representatives don't care about you, because when they do things that hurt poor Latinos, poor Asians, poor Black people, poor Native Americans, it hurts poor white people. And as a group, as just a single group, they're the largest group of poor people in the country. The absolute largest group of poor people in the country. They're the largest people who get welfare and food stamps and Medicare or so Medicaid. So what happens when those programs get cut? They get cut too. So, you know, we have to know the truth to tell the truth, and we have to keep learning because there is so much more to know, so much more to know. I mean, I have recently, part of my passion inside of this has been incited by, I read a book called The Color of Law. The Color of Law tells the history of how the United States government, state governments, city governments, developers, lenders, real estate agents segregated the United States on purpose. They built, cramped housing that didn't have enough housing for the people who needed to be in it. Where communities were integrated, they broke them up. The FHA, which is the major lender for people who are first-time buyers and even, higher up, would not lend to a white person if they were going to buy a house in an integrated neighborhood. And wouldn't lend to Black people, at all. I mean, they were really, their anti-Black racism is what this country was built on. And it is applied to everybody else. So we can get rid of that, it will go away for everyone else as well. And that's why I focus so passionately on African Americans. So I hope that answered your question, Cruz. I know it's a long-winded maybe, but.
No, I mean, it was more than I could ask for, and it's true. It's like knowing about like, like your culture and like knowing about like everything they spoke about is important because at the same time, that gives you the ability to confidently and knowledgeably.
Right.
So
yeah. I mean, for instance, and I don't know like your ethnic background. I hear your accent. I think you speak Spanish, right? But I can tell you that we would not have desegregated schools if it wasn't for cases in Orange County and San Bernardino County with Latinx families who wanted to go to the school that is across the street from me, but that school is segregated and for whites only. And those cases won and allowed Thurgood Marshall to then take those cases and take Brown versus Board of Education to the Supreme Court. We have a very woven history across many different cultures. And this racism in America made it that way. And we have to stick together and make sure we get rid of it.
Love it. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. I'm with it.
Good. Yay.
That was really amazing. Thank you so much for this value. So we have 2 minutes. Anyone else would like to ask anything else? I'm pretty sure we're going to extend it a little today. Is that right, Alexis? We're going to extend it a little today for the Q&A session. So you guys still have time.
Yeah, we're pretty much going up until, was it 5:07?
Okay.
Amazing. So let's take this valuable time to ask any more questions. Anyone else?
Yeah, real quick. I just want to say thank you so much to Janice for mentioning the Rockefellers. I like to educate myself as well, so I definitely do my own research on that stuff. But yeah, like a lot of people will not talk about them, and that's how I could definitely tell it's real.
Yeah. No, I mean, money covers up a lot of ills, and the report is called the Flexner Report. And they used it to do what they wanted to do, which was, which is why when you go to the doctor, you are more likely to get a prescription than anything else. And and maybe that's how we start looking at doctors now. If you're only going to give me a prescription, maybe I need a different kind of doctor.
Yeah, that's very, I think it's very interesting too, because I get a lot of my information from a guy local here to Compton. His name is Riza Islam, and he's part of the Nation of Islam. I'm not too sure if you're familiar. And yeah, I was just like listening into it, and it's for me. I understand both coins of the issue, where it's, you know, it's understanding where you're wronged, but never getting into that victim mentality. it's
Oh
it's
yeah.
simultaneously doing it, because, you know, it should bring you power opposed to like let you down. You shouldn't be, you know. So I like the stance where, you know, education of it is like, whoa, you know, that's where it's like, all right, now I have an understanding of what happened, or, you know. So I just want to say
Right.
thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my absolute pleasure. As again, it's my passion, and I'm a novice from my perspective. But you know, when you talk about, there's a term called, I mean, something I've heard, a phrase I've heard many, many times, about speaking truth to power. And you can't speak truth to power if you don't know it. So you need to know it. And then when you're presented with someone who thinks they have power, um, you are able to counteract whatever it is they're trying to bring to you. So knowledge is power.
Does anybody else have any last question? Oh, I was gonna ask too. So what are the projects that you're kind of that we're here to foresee you in, and what's, you know, what's your plans for this? Because the Riverside program, and yeah, like I just get an update on what you're focused.
Right now, I am focusing on, I actually have some nonprofit clients that are doing a variety of things, so I'm working on those. I have two things that I'm trying to work into my Equity Leadership Academy. University of Riverside and quite possibly the Riverside Community College District may uh, come on board to do some work, and to do so that they can do some work in their organizations. And so my Equity Leadership Academy starts with the Racial Equity Institute Phase 1 training, because everybody needs to have common language to talk about this. And I think they provide one of the best trainings I've ever seen. So I am constantly getting people to go to it so we can have conversations, because it gives you the kind of background to do that. And I know that, for instance, at universities, and particularly at UCs and you know, this UC, you know, it's very difficult for them to hire and retain Black faculty. And if you can't hire and retain Black faculty, you certainly are not going to be able to hire, recruit and keep Black students. And so it's a transient. I mean, it's a difficult problem, and really need to get all of the faculty trained, and then get them to put together a plan to do something. And the chancellor's on board, so you know, it's just a matter of trying to move forward with that. The other thing is a larger problem, because one of our school districts last January, so it's been well over a year now, you know, pulled together like 40 city leaders and said, look, we have these issues, these racial issues came up, but we don't know, I mean, but we can't solve this by ourselves. Children acting out in school is simply a symptom of what's going on at home or wherever they're hanging out, whatever it is, right? It's not just them. So, you know, that was a request to the city leaders to come together and do something about that. Well, again, a year later, no one stood up to do that. So I am. And I am doing that through the Equity Leadership Academy. And I'm reaching out to a variety of city leaders, including the mayor and the city manager, and, you know, there's a whole slew. And getting them into the academy, and to make a class that will then work on, even if it's just one systemic problem, right? Just one thing that they as a small group can do, and then continue to put more people through so that they can work on other components of it. And then hopefully annually bring all of the graduates together to really talk as a large group about what they've been doing, any success they've had, problems, and then how they as a larger group can collaborate to do something. Because when I go to, it's a shame, but people will I've heard people stand up either in the city hall or on the phone and say racism doesn't exist. I've also heard people on the phone say some other horrible things that I won't even repeat because they don't care. Okay, they just don't care. And so it exists, it's here, it's everywhere. No one can avoid it. It is impossible to avoid it because our whole society was built and based on it. And it needs to be fixed. It needs to be eliminated. So, so those are my projects right now. I may do some other smaller projects where I help an organization and maybe their executives to have some discussions. But I really don't want to work with people unless they've gone through this training because it's that important. And really just trying to get as many people as I can to take the Racial Equity Institute Phase 1 training. And maybe even talk with Angel about how we can figure out to maybe scholarship students into this training. And you as well, all of you.
Yeah, is the Racial Equity, you said Institute?
Yes.
What was that what it was? Okay.
Yes.
So my question is how do I get in there? Is that a service from your business?
Well, I actually so there's an organization called the California Anti-Racism Alliance, and it is actually alumni who have gone through the Racial Equity Institute training. That organization is the registration for the California workshops, just the California workshops. They do these workshops virtually. They do them all over the country. Sometimes, most of the workshops they actually do are contracted specifically for organizations, and nobody ever sees those. But on their website, you can see, that there are Racial Equity Institute Phase 1 trainings. Our California one should be up there. And usually it costs. So the cost is usually $375. If there are 3 or more people, it would be $300 per person. And really, like I said, maybe we can figure out, one, that you would get the lower price anyway, but 2, if there are any ways we could figure out scholarships or something. Anti-Racist Riverside doesn't have any funding. We're a grassroots organization. We're not trying to become, a nonprofit at all. We just want to do what we do and not feel hindered. That's the best way I can put it. But yeah, if we could figure out how to do that, that would be great.
Right. One real quick thing, Janice. So Evolution of Leadership, our goal is to have chapters at every single university in California, CSUs, UCs, and some community colleges as well.
Right.
So once we get there and establish grassroots chapter, then we can have a conversation of having the Anti-Racist Institute either partner with us, and then we could launch it at different universities once we have access to them. So I can definitely see a very powerful partnership there.
Good.
And wow, we can have great discussions on that and really change a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, like I said, just let me know. We'll figure it out.
Awesome.
Cool. So it is time. I just wanted to say thank you, Janice, for speaking on your passion and it's reality. This is a real issue, and I just wanted to say also thank you to the people who are creating the chapters in the upcoming Evolution Leadership organizations. So again, too, if you are watching this and you want to create evolution of leadership chapter at your school, yeah, just DM us. We have Instagram and a couple of other, Twitter, I believe, and just give us a message saying, chapters, message us the word chapters, and we'll get back to you. And Janice, is there anything last minute you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I just want to say thank you. I think this is wonderful what you're doing. Again, I think business people should be clamoring at your door to talk to your students. You will be growing, and in any way I can help you, I'd be happy to. Just let me know. I certainly would, love to connect you to any of the universities that are near me, and to grow evolution of leadership. I think it's important. So thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much. And yeah, Angel will probably get connected with you too.
Good. All right. Have a good night.